This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, TalkStream Live, and our growing family of broadcast affiliates right around the world. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. My email address is studio@xzoneradiotv.com, and our radio website, www.xzoneradio.com. We're going to be talking to Brandon Callahan this hour. We're going to be speaking to Brandon about his book, The Agony That Remains. Now, born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri, Brandon has traveled the world while serving in the United States Air Force and works to develop new theories with existing ones in the paranormal field to allow for more knowledge and the ability to assist those in need. Brandon grew up with an insatiable desire to learn everything he could about anything mysterious. He has been actively investigating paranormal activity in the field for many years now and has developed a method of tracking potential hotspots, locations throughout the world. Paranormal investigator, author, and aspiring filmmaker, founder and co-founder of multiple paranormal investigation teams, Brandon offers assistance to those in need and constantly seeks the truth. Brandon searches for unique locations and stories to share with the world. And you can find out more about Brandon on his Facebook page, facebook.com/Callahan author. And Brandon, welcome back. How are things with you in the beautiful state of Missouri?
Oh, going great, Rob. I appreciate you having me back.
You know, we've talked about your other book entitled The House Where Evil Lurks, but tonight I'd like to talk to you about The Agony That Remains. That's your most recent book. But for our listeners who may not have had the pleasure of listening to the last time you were with us, Brandon, tell us a little bit about yourself and what was it that inspired you to do the paranormal work that you do today?
Well, with your really thorough and fantastic intro, you kind of touch on a lot of it, just in the fact that I grew up really interested in just about anything and everything I could find that had some mystery to it. Mm-hmm. And as I was serving in the Air Force, it wasn't a personal experience that was life-altering or anything, but it was just simply unexplainable. Which, basically we were just kind of rummaging through some old ruins in Turkey on the side of the road, and I found myself on a 110-degree day on a staircase that really went ice cold all of a sudden, and I could actually see my breath in broad daylight.
Wow.
And, yeah, I just couldn't explain it away, and I couldn't ignore it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was kind of the tipping point, and that was fairly shortly before I was going to separate from the military. And so when I got back home, I really just kind of made the decision. I really wanted to think through it real thoroughly and have a good approach and get out in the field and really start to, try to see what I could find to explain for myself.
How many paranormal investigations would you estimate you have done since leaving the military?
Well, most of our cases turn into multiple investigations. So I would say total, probably about between 150, 200.
My gosh. And how long does each paranormal investigation take? Is there a ballpark figure, or each and every one is so unique that it's impossible to give an average?
I think the latter, because a lot of times you don't know what to expect on any given night, especially in some of the more, I guess, involved cases that we work. Some nights are fairly short, fairly inactive, or just due to scheduling or whatever it might be. And then others we've gone in well over 12 hours.
Wow.
When we go to a place just to kind of keep the skills sharp and see what we can check out. We've got some little hot spots that we like to go to on occasion. That really just depends. I mean, sometimes, like I said, we'll pull nearly an all-nighter, and other times we'll just be out there for a few hours.
X-Zone Nation, we're talking to Brandon Callahan this hour here in the X-Zone. We're talking about Brandon's new book, The Agony That Remains, and Brandon and I will be back on the other side of the short break as we continue here in the X-Zone, investigating the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, Monday through Friday from 11 p.m. Eastern until 2 p.m. Eastern, from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. To find out more about Brandon, visit him online at Callahan Author, and that's on his Facebook page, facebook.com/Callahan Author. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
Shamanism is recognized as a method to access the quantum level. Mastery of shamanic skills puts spiritual information and healing power into your hands. Path Home Shamanic Art School, a bonded Colorado certified occupational school, has met rigorous state standards, ensuring its director and instructors have the qualifications to teach the shamanic arts. Path Home offers its certification program in blocks of study. Block 1, a 5-day intensive, will be held in the beautiful mountain town of Coaldale, Colorado, October 13th through 18th. Registration deadline is September 12th. Experience journey trance, power animals, helping spirits, sacred space, and life purpose. Come discover your power. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magical world of shamanism. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com.
Brandon Callahan is our special guest this hour, X-Zone Nation. And we're talking to Brandon about his book entitled The Agony That Remains. Tell us about this book and what inspired you to write it, Brandon.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of stems back to my research that I've been doing for the last 6 or 7 years regarding ley line research. And we had put together a trip, that was going to take us from Kansas City down to New Orleans and back. And our plan was to stop in different locations on the way down there and really on the way back. And as it turned out, we had an investigation scheduled in Tahlequah, Oklahoma on the second night of our trip. And that actually happened to be the one location along the way that sat on a very large cluster of intersecting ley lines. And really the activity was so, just constant. It really just kind of stole the show when it came to that trip. And we ended up stopping back by there on our way home on the end of the trip, and it really just almost immediately turned into a project for us because the two gentlemen that owned the property at the time really wanted some answers, and so they really wanted us to kind of stick around and continue coming down for a while to see what we could find out. And so really it kind of just went from there. And a lot of times I've found over the years, I can usually figure out pretty quickly if I think it's going to be something that might be worth writing about or something that's going to be a more extended type of investigation. And this one was a no-brainer.
All right, tell us about the paranormal activity that was occurring.
Yeah, it started really during the walkthrough when we got to the property. The property is owned by two brothers that had really been supplanted there generations ago through the Trail of Tears that took place when the Cherokee Nation was forcibly moved by the government from the East Coast, and they ended up in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. So the historical aspect of that was definitely significant from the get-go. And so when we were doing our walkthrough, my partner, Jeremiah, actually had seen a full-bodied apparition in the middle of the day, and we had been told almost immediately about just really countless activity. It stemmed from ghosts, as Jeremiah experienced almost immediately, to demonic type activity, alien activity, UFO sightings, encounters, Bigfoot, little people. Basically, it seemed like they had a little dictionary of paranormal subjects, and they covered pretty much every page. So from the beginning, we kind of just had to accept the fact that we needed to expect the unexpected and really make no assumptions and really just kind of be on our toes, which really was proven very correct very quickly.
Is it possible for one location to have multiple paranormal activities happening at the same time?
I think not only is it possible, I think it's fairly common. Especially when it comes to, at least this has been my finding while doing a lot of this ley line research, I believe these locations are geographically significant, not necessarily by man, but by earth energy. And I do think that in some instances, they almost act as a conductor for different types of activity. I've found that a lot of times where these intersecting lines are, it's very common to come into a lot of reports of creatures in the woods, monsters, Bigfoot, things like that. And almost hand in hand come stories about a lot of UFO sightings or alien activity. And then when you just kind of couple that with the I guess more generic haunting type activity, within this research, I've found these locations to be almost more common than not.
So when we're looking at this one particular investigation, how many different paranormal investigations were you conducting at the same time? Like ghost hauntings, what else?
Right. That was really the most mind-blowing part. Is at first we didn't really know where to start because we didn't have all these reports before we got there, and so we kind of had to think on our feet a little bit. And before we knew it, because I had never really spent much time pursuing Sasquatch, I'd never done a lot of Bigfoot hunting or anything like that, and so I kind of just had to wing it a little bit. And I've always had an interest in extraterrestrial activity. I do have I have staunch feelings about intelligent life outside of this planet. And so that always interests me when I get stories about interaction with aliens and things of that nature. So really, at first we kind of just wanted to conduct it as though it was just a normal investigation, except we needed to have our attention in as many areas as we could. So we needed to have our eyes somewhat fixed on the sky. We needed to be outside. We needed to be inside. So we really just tried to space out our time and our equipment, dictating as such. And then we just decided that whatever may happen is really what we would focus on at the time.
So what, in your opinion, was the focal point of all this paranormal activity?
Well, I believe that the location in and of itself, even prior to being inhabited by these communities, I believe that was very significant. I'm currently working on establishing potential investigations in a few other locations in the Midwest that are similar. And so I think that was my number one focal point, because in the end, that was the research I had been doing that brought us down there in the first place. I certainly believe that due to the dark history, that may have magnified a lot of the activity. And so I think, understanding when we went down there, or at least I tried to understand, with that geographical significance, what I wanted to do was try to develop a little bit better working theory as to whether or not it did in fact exacerbate or even attract a lot of this activity.
So what was the main investigation? Was it a UFO investigation? Was it a ghost haunting investigation? What one did you first focus on?
Well, we had to focus on the property and the houses on the property, because that's where there were problems. There were physical interactions between unseen forces and the people that lived there. So that was absolutely priority one, and we wanted to just kind of be prepared for anything else. But absolutely, it was a fairly, I won't say typical, just because these things really aren't typical. They're all very unique in certain ways, but at first it was more focused on the haunting and the effect of the brothers that had lived there for so long.
What was the history of the property?
Well, they had it, a lot of the different families of the Cherokee had acreage basically given to them by the government as almost a form of appeasement or payment for what they had gone through following the Trail of Tears.
Right.
And their family had owned a large amount of acreage right there in that area for a long time, and they had sold bits and pieces off over the generations and the years. So we were dealing with about 30 acres total. But that was their property, so they certainly wanted to maintain it. Unfortunately, one of the brothers fell very ill. He's not in very good health these days. And the other brother is really, I think, up in the air as far as whether or not he wants to stay, which really is a little bit heartbreaking because of the history of the land, knowing that so many generations had been there within their family. So that was really, for the most part, that the thing was, with the history of the land, there had always been activity. They had experienced it so often that they grew up just as it was as a daily part of their lives.
So what was the final outcome of this investigation, and what were you able to establish, and were you able to bring it to a conclusion?
I don't know that property will ever be free and clear of unexplained activity. We did establish that it was my belief, at least, that a lot of progress could be made with your more traditional Native American type cleansing of the property. Now, of course, when we do this, we can make suggestions, but we can't force anybody to do anything, And so when it was kind of winding down, you have to keep in mind that this project went on for over 5 years.
Holy cow.
Yeah, we've been going down there for years. And so in the end, I think we had a pretty good idea of what could potentially help on the property. Now, keep in mind, though, along the process there, we also had found solid information that there was a lot of, ritualistic type activity that had also taken place that really, in my opinion, kind of heightened a lot of the things going on there. And so when it comes to things like that, a lot of times it's going to take the people that were involved to really set it back, if it's even possible. So we did try to take some steps towards that, but really in the end, the ownership of the property, I think, is somewhat up in the air. But and we've made some suggestions. I can't really say that I'd necessarily consider a case closed, though.
So what would happen to a property like this? What do you suggest happen? Do you suggest that the property be bulldozed? Do you suggest that there should be some sort of spiritual ritual to try and cleanse the property? What happens next?
That's my opinion. It is some sort of a cleansing, I believe, would go a great distance in helping at least the more, aggressive energies that may be around there on the property. I think that would certainly be helpful. But, as far as being bulldozed or something like that, I would hate to see something like that. Whether or not whether it's not somewhere that somebody can live for an extended period of time without any trouble, I think is next to impossible to say. But I do think step one should be to have it thoroughly cleansed by somebody that has done that before. I'm not clergy, and I'm not, I definitely don't claim to be the person that can cleanse anything and everything, and some people do. But that would definitely be my first step, personally.
The fact that this is on native land, isn't there a shaman or a medicine man that could actually come in and help get rid of whatever it is causing the problems?
Well, it's not on like a reservation or anything like that. So really, it's public. It's privately owned land. I'm sorry, as most of those communities around there are now. But access to people like that. Now, remember that I am kind of Joe Blow outsider. I do not have. I have, I think, one person in my family history that was full-blood Cherokee.
Well, listen, you and I have to we've got to take a little break here. Please stand by. Brandon Callahan is our special guest, and we'll both be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
As host of Dialogue with Divinity, I am thrilled to join the X-Zone Broadcast Network and their growing number of affiliates. My quest for a connection to the divine ignited my successful career path as an international spiritual counselor for over 40 years, an author of 4 books, and well-known metaphysical educator. My clients call me their spiritual mama. So my job is to offer you a radio show to help you grow spiritually with wisdom and get specific tools from guests who are experts in their field. Tune in to Dialogue with Divinity and be part of the conversation with Spirit. My goal, your happy soul. For more information, please visit my website at johannacarroll.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Brandon Callahan is our guest this hour on Facebook. Facebook.com/Callahan author. Brandon, in your book that we're discussing this hour tonight here on the X-Zone, how do these people feel that that they've lost their house. Is there anything that they have done since then to try and regain the house from whatever it is that's causing all the paranormal activity? And what did your research into the past of the house bring you, show you that could possibly have caused this paranormal activity?
Yeah, well, there are a couple structures on the property, one of which was so dilapidated that it's no longer able to be lived in whatsoever. As a matter of fact, even going inside that particular house at this point is waiver worthy. And so the other house that really could still be functional is currently being worked on. And I believe it is one of the brothers' intent to stay there as best he can. Most of the in-house extreme activity was in the house that's basically falling on itself right now. As far as cause and effect, we had uncovered facts of voodoo and witchcraft type rituals that had occurred on the land, which really, when it came to the Native American lifestyle post Trail of Tears, one thing that I had to really wrap my head around was just what a cutthroat and tough environment it was. It wasn't uncommon for clans to clash with each other, and a lot of times the way they would do that is they would cast spells. They would practice dark magic. They would practice bad medicine. And so that's when you really start to dive into that aspect of it, you have to understand that, these things can be so powerful that some things that have been done just simply can't be undone. And, not having my magic wand with me, it was more just trying to learn everything that we could and then do as much research as we could to try to find something that could at least calm things. And so that was really our goal. But, to a certain extent, again, a lot of that onus falls on the property owner because they need to really take ownership and control of the situation more than somebody like me coming in from the outside.
Sure. Is it part of their problem, or should I say, is, in your opinion, the haunting part of the problem caused by the last tenants, or is there a history of paranormal activity that you were able to track back through time?
Well, I do believe that there was activity in this area long before they were. I also believe that, I know that through the family there had been different practices that certainly could have really given rise to a lot of that activity. And so, without kind of going too into detail, understanding when you're finding evidence of rituals and, sort of magic, things like that, you really quickly develop the understanding that some of the damage is self-inflicted.
So how do you deal with the after effects of a paranormal experience with people who have no idea what's going on or why it's going on? There must be a psychological effect on the people who resided in that house.
Oh, there's a psychological effect on me. The way I equate a place like that is, think of it in the perspective of jumping into the pool with your clothes on. And when you get out of the pool, you don't have a towel to dry off. There's no air blowing, no nothing. You're just going to be wet for a while. And when you dive into this type of energy, and it's that thick and it's that potent, it takes a while really to, I guess, in a way, dry off once you're gone. And in a lot of ways, I think I may have developed permanent side effects from that particular case. And so with them having been there for so long, I think that there is damage done. There's psychological damage done. There's, emotional damage done. And I think at that point, they really need to make a decision as to whether they want to get serious about trying to rid the property of whatever's there, or at least calming things down or maybe make a decision as to whether or not it's worth it, whether or not they need to stay.
Well, what would you suggest people do if they feel that there might be a paranormal presence in their house? Is there anything that they should do? And is there the possibility that if they do something that is not recommended by paranormal researchers, they could actually make the event worse?
Oh, you can make it a lot worse, absolutely. In my opinion, what I would first start to do is I would do a lot of research. And specifically, I would do a lot of research on the people that could potentially come into my home. Because I have seen many paranormal investigators, quote unquote, that really have no business going into these homes because they can't keep their own stuff wired tight. How are they going to go into somebody else's home and maybe not make it worse themselves? So I do believe that there are a lot of researchers out there that can do some good for these people. I like to think of myself as one of them, mainly because I'm honest. You know, I've got no agenda. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to tell you I don't know the answer. Now, I'll do some research and try to find an answer, but a lot of people assume they have all the answers, and I think in a lot of ways that can hurt as well. So first thing, I would say do a whole lot of research on anybody that you're asking help from, and then I would also talk to whomever it is, whether it, like you said, a shaman, a medicine man, a priest, or whomever it is that you are spiritually connected to. I think they can a lot of times lead you in the right direction.
Why do you think that there is so much paranormal activity happening in the world today? Is it just because we have more access to information, or is it because there is actually something happening where there's a battle between the paranormal and this side of reality?
You know, this is where the lunatic in me comes out, I guess, but I feel like the veil is extremely thin right now, between dimensions, between worlds, between intelligent life. And to be honest with you, Rob, I truly believe that as a culture and as a people, I believe our collective conscience can be so powerful that it truly can have either a positive or a negative effect, not only on our homes, but the entire world. And to be honest with you, all you've got to do is watch your local news for 10 minutes and understand that the vast majority of us are subjected to such negativity and such just doom and gloom that it's almost impossible to come by somebody that says at some point they don't feel somewhat depressed. And when you have a society and a culture that is depressed, you know, the thing is that's what these negative energies feed on, is depression and anxiety and anger. They feed on it. And so when every single one of us has these problems, I do believe that it can have a very large effect on all of us. I don't think it's site-specific at all.
The fact that there's so much information available on television, radio, and in print, is this causing a resurgence of the paranormal? And how much of the resurgence of the paranormal is real compared to...
I'll tell you what, Rob, I think that it causes a lot of assumptions. I think it also causes a lot of so-called experts to come into light, where when it comes to paranormal research, I feel like the word expert is not only overused, but it's laughable that it's even hardly ever used. Because the bottom line is, even the person that's been doing this for 50 years can't give us an exact answer. I mean, that's just a fact. And, you know, the last I checked is if you're an expert on something, you can explain it, you can tell me all about it, you can fix it, you can diagnose it. But I don't know anybody that can do that.
Neither do I.
But, again, there's so-called experts everywhere. And so I think a lot of people have an assumption that all activity is demonic, or, you know, all activity requires an exorcism. So I think it kind of feeds a little bit of the paranoia that goes around. I think it's a good thing, but I also think that people need to understand that there's a lot of work and research that goes into the real work. And it's not just something you learn on an hour-long TV show. You just can't do it.
A lot of people these days, like you just pointed out, think that they can become paranormal investigators by watching these television shows, which in my opinion are anything but reality shows. Paranormal investigation are a lot like police work, surveillance. Sometimes you get activity, sometimes you don't. When people are looking for places to learn, how should they gauge those that are credible and those that are not?
That's a tough question to answer, because those that are not are typically very good at hiding the fact that they're not until it's too late. So what I would say, if you want to experience something, first of all, but you don't fancy yourself an investigator, you don't necessarily want to, fix the world or whatever it might be, do some historical research on local places. Find the obvious stories, the site of a battle, the site of a massacre of sorts, the site of, I think a lot of people do it with these old hospitals and things like that. But find something that may more or less provide some sort of residual energy or residual effect, something that's not necessarily intelligent. And research it first, so you know your history, and go and try to experience something, but keep your mind open. Don't make any assumptions. Don't assume that just because you read that this place is the most haunted place in the world, that it is in fact haunted. You really don't know until you see it or experience it. But as far as if you're looking to interact with other people, I think you almost have to just really trust your gut. I'm fortunate to be, or at least I fancy myself a pretty good judge of character. So I haven't really had a whole lot of problems in that way, but I also keep my circle very, very tight, very close, and very small. It's not that I don't like interacting with other investigators. I absolutely do. But when it comes to the real work that I do, I'm just extremely picky about who I work with. And to be honest with you, the people that I work with, for the most part, had never had anything to do with it until we decided to go out and do it. And these are people that I just knew had a skill set that would bring something to the table. And they were also like-minded people that just simply wanted to find answers, and nobody was out there making assumptions.
All right, stand by, my friend.
I got lucky, really.
Okay, stand by. We've got to take our
Be very careful and trust your gut.
All right, we've got to take our final break. We'll be back on the other side. Brandon Callahan is our special guest. He's the author of The Agony That Remains. For more information about Brandon, visit facebook.com/Callahan author. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We'll be back after this break. Don't go away.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randall, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
Brandon Callahan is our guest on Facebook, facebook.com/Callahan author. Brandon, let's talk more about that case because, you know, I talked to you briefly during the break, and I'll tell you, with so much paranormal activity going on, was that house on a ley line or something, or was there anything else that you could connect to the paranormal activity that was occurring there? I mean, besides the fact that it was on, you know, this horrific Indian guilt trip present that the United States government gave to the people of the First Nations.
Mm-hmm. You know, as far as, I guess, what the cause, again, I truly feel that the proximity of the ley lines, which really, as I look at my map, Tahlequah is sitting within a couple miles of this intersecting cluster of lines. And I am pretty well sold that has a lot to do with it, especially the activity of creatures and aliens and things of that nature. When it came to a lot of the hauntings, the land was pretty wrought with tragedy as well over the years, as you'll certainly read about in the book. There had been instances of people really just losing their minds. There was at least one suicide. We also suspected quite a few unmarked graves, which we later actually called in. We actually had ground-penetrating radar equipment. One of my partners, Jason, he's a medium, and he had told me where he felt like we needed to do the GPR research, where he thought these unmarked graves were. And sure enough, it came to find out that almost exactly where he said we had some questionable results. Now, we weren't able to actually dig because of the state of the land at the moment, legal issues and things like that. But, it led me to believe that a combination of all kinds of history and occurrences had really lent itself to it, not the least of which was just the I guess, conscious decision to dabble in different sorts of voodoo and magic.
How important is a person's religious beliefs when it comes to paranormal investigations? Or is there no connection whatsoever?
Well, personally, it's important to me. I think that's something that everybody has to answer to their own. I personally believe that I am protected. I have had bad occurrences in the past of things coming home with me, and you'll read about that in The House Where Evil Lurks. But since then, since that occurrence, I really got back to my faith in a big way, and I do think it's extremely important. But, I work with and interact with people of all religious backgrounds and beliefs, and I don't judge any of them, and I really feel like whatever is your comfort zone, whatever you feel gives you that spiritual protection, I think anything's possible, really. So I think that question really needs to be answered by each individual as an individual.
So when you go out doing paranormal investigations, what do you do that protects you from bringing something negative back home with you?
I do carry certain stones with me that I think help. A friend of mine along the way years ago had just made a recommendation, and again, these stones don't have anything to do with my particular religion, but because it was given in the context in which they were, I felt like it helped, and I do believe that it does help, and I cleanse them when I get home. So that's part of it, and then the other part really is just holding my faith as close to me as I do. And so far, so good on that front. I do try to stay as spiritual as I can, and especially in instances like this when you're dealing with Native American history and culture, to me, you have to allow yourself to see it from the big picture, to see it from their perspective, and to at least try to understand where they're coming from, because these people suffered atrocities that are way beyond words. I do the best I can in the book, but I can't understand that. I mean, that's the type of thing that nobody can really fathom. People think they know about war until they actually see a war. It's just like people that weren't slaves back in the day when slavery was rampant and the way they were treated. I mean, we can't understand that because we didn't personally experience it. So I try my best to really keep that open mind and to try to, I guess, drink in that perspective as best I can. And sometimes it's dangerous, and sometimes it's heartbreaking, but it's just something that I think is really important.
What about UFOs? Taking off the track just of your book,
Sure.
we don't hear about UFOs in the news anymore, or we haven't in a long time. What's going on?
Right. Well, you don't hear about anything that Uncle Sam doesn't want you to hear about. I mean, that's pure and simple. I mean, I was lucky enough to do certain work while I was in the military that allowed me information, and I can't talk about a lot of it, but at the same time, I mean, I know what I know, and I keep that close, and I use that to help develop my theories. But to me, when it comes to extraterrestrials and aliens, to me, even allowing yourself to consider the size of this space, the size of this universe, galaxy, whatever it might be, to think that this tiny little planet is the only thing with intelligent life on it looking to potentially interact with something else, that's one of the most arrogant things I can possibly think of, to be honest with you.
I understand that that Uncle Sam can hide anything he wants to. I understand that. But we're talking about a worldwide closure, a worldwide button-lipped way of talking about UFOs. Like nothing is coming out of anywhere. Just not the United States, but anywhere.
And I've also heard that there are certain people in power that may be close enough to taking the reins and allowing some of these things to get out in the public. I've read articles about the Pope almost wanting to talk about this sort of thing. Who knows what our government might have up its sleeve? I mean, anything to distract and to try to implant more thoughts. But to me, I agree with you, the fact that the personal experiences are few and far between, but the problem is it's hard to tell between what has been doctored and what's real, because a lot of people just seek the attention as opposed to the truth. And so you just simply have to check your sources, and for me, that's why I go out there. That's exactly why I go out there, because if you tell me, Rob, that you saw this, I can't 100% buy into it because I didn't see it with you.
Exactly.
And so bottom line is, Rob, I get off my butt and I go out and I do it myself.
But once again, how many people will actually get off their butt and go out and do an investigation instead of just sitting on their laurels and they're like what are they called? Monday morning quarterbacks? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of that goes on. And you know what? I respect anybody for doing what they do and believing what they believe. I'm not out there trying to turn skeptics into believers. That's not my job. Because really, a true skeptic, 9 times out of 10, they're more or less just looking for people to do the work for them. It's real easy to sit there and say, no, you can't prove that. Prove it for me. Well, hey, that's not my job.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
If you don't care, then don't care. But I'm out there trying to figure out what's real.
And there's a lot of mysteries out there to go through. We've got about 2 minutes left, and another big topic that once again we don't hear anything about or very little about is Bigfoot. Any ideas?
Well, for me, I have a very different outlook on Bigfoot than a lot of the so-called Bigfooters. If I'm out there and I believe that Sasquatch is a possibility, you're not going to really see me knocking on wood and hooting and hollering. To me, I feel like while we were down there, I felt like we have recordings that suggest that Bigfoot, 9 times out of 10, or a Sasquatch-type creature, 9 times out of 10 is communicating in the same method that we capture EVPs. I believe that a lot of their communication is not audible to our ears until you can listen to it. And so for me, a Bigfoot is more of an interdimensional being. They call it the king of hide and seek or whatever it might be. But in my opinion, we're not dealing with something that's just hunkered down in the woods 24/7. I just don't believe that. But I do believe that things can come and go via dimension. How that's done, I don't know. That's part of the research. But for me, I feel like it's more of a spiritual being, an interdimensional being, than it is necessarily a physical creature that's sitting out there in the woods.
Whatever it is, it's strange, it's wonderful. And listen, our time is up for tonight, Brandon. As always, great talking to you, my friend. Congratulations on your new book. And hey, do me a favor. Come on back anytime. It's great talking to you.
Darn right. Anytime, Rob. I really appreciate you having me.
All right. You take.
Have a good night.
All right. And Brandon, quickly, where can people get a copy of your new book?
Anywhere. Amazon. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, in the stores, online. You Google it, you'll find it, guaranteed.
And of course, from the good people at Llewellyn as well.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
All right, you take care of yourself, young man. Look forward to the next time you and I meet.
You. Have a
back
good
here.
night.
You too now. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. This is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Brandon Callahan was our guest. Great guy. Check out his Facebook page, facebook.com/author. No, Callahan Author. That's it. We'll be back. Don't go away.